Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Phil Marriott. Thank you very much for being part of this channel. If you're into music, movies, film festivals, we pretty much cover it here. Raj Rudolph is here. How are you, Raj?
Hey, Phil.
How you doing?
I am good. I am rocking my Robert Smith realness hairdo today because I really need a haircut.
I really love it. We were talking about that just a minute ago because my hair used to be, well, back in the early 90s, it used to be kind of shoulder length. And
I can't even imagine that. Like, that's so, I can't even imagine you with long hair.
I used to backcomb it. Used to spray it, crimp it, gel it, everything.
I need to see a flashback moment on this video.
I'll dig out some pictures. There aren't many, actually, because it was like a lot of the pictures that I took around the time I was at art college, and I used to drink quite a lot at art college. So, yeah, a lot of it is a blur. And I didn't actually take many photos. Weirdly, I guess I was pretty photogenic at the time for the wrong reasons, though. So the film we're talking about today, I'm dying to hear what you're thinking of this.
It's The Columnist.
So this is a Dutch satirical comedy thriller directed by Ivo van Aert, or Ivo van Aert. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but I think he's done some TV thrillers. Actually, I think the last one he did was about social media. So I think he's got quite a heavy interest in social media. But it's written by Dan Windhorst. The screenplay has been written by him. It stars Westworld's Katja Herbers. Are you a fan of Westworld? I've not actually seen Westworld.
No, but I also saw that she was in The Leftovers for a few episodes. So I was like, oh, kind of want to go and rewatch that now because I thought she was really good in this film.
So this was a standout at Fright Fest. I think it was last year. It's about a columnist who is kind of obsessed by her feedback from the people that are looking at her newspaper column. She gets a lot of bad press, as it were, from people that are reading her stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a golden rule in journalism that you should never read the comments, never. And I know when I first started out blogging, and there were so many nasty comments that was made all the time, and you're just like, I kind of understand why she would feel the way that she does. I mean, who hasn't thought about going on a murderous spree of killing all your comments? I know I have.
Is that something you're trying to tell me, Raj? Well, this is the interesting thing because it's a look at what happens, isn't it, when the victims of online abuse say enough is enough. And that's pretty much what she was saying, enough is enough. But it's a really interesting scene, which we'll come on to. We'll talk about the characters later. But the man that she's with, she goes out to dinner with her boyfriend, who actually started off not getting on because they were on a TV appearance together, and he was kind of disagreeing with what she had to say about online abuse. But it's quite an interesting scene because she's talking about how she vents her aggression in a video game. And I suppose a lot of people would do that, but this, obviously goes over the boundary because she does actually go as far as harming people without spoiling.
I have to say I wasn't really excited about this film. I kind of saw one clip of it. I was like, we'll see what happens. And as soon as she did that first murder, I was like, oh, what is this? What's going on here? And and she just doesn't stop from there. And she doesn't come across as like, a murderous serial killer. It's like she finds her motivation to get over her writer's block from committing murders of her haters. And I just found that really fascinating and interesting. And there's quite a few films, a handful of films now that are touching on social commentary.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of The Hunt. When I saw this film. I don't know if you've seen it or not, Phil, but it's very social, political commentary, us against them, let's go kill the others type of thing. And I really like these films. I think they're really thought-provoking, and they make us ask the question, like, shouldn't we all just be a little nicer to each other?
Yeah, well, exactly. Because I suppose, the Be Kind thing with Caroline Flack, obviously it's a year on since her death. And so many people are, spreading that positivity. You've got to be kinder to people on social media because one look through Twitter, and if you're scrolling Twitter, you can see so many arguments and so much abuse directed to people in particular that have just got an opinion. And that's what I thought was really interesting about this film, because at the end of the day, she's saying she's writing a column. It's her opinion. She's not being cruel to people. She's just saying it as it is, how she feels. she thinks about, you know, certain topics and certain things in life. And, you know, these people are just bombarding her with just hate. And she says she doesn't deserve that.
And in a way, she's right. Like, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with her. But I think, you know, this film is very Twitter centric, and it's very true. This happens to a lot of people. I remember the one thing that threw me off Twitter, and Twitter is my biggest social platform. On my page, when AOC was, you know, running to get her office in Congress, like I made one positive remark about AOC, and for days, my feed was filled with hate. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, just because I was supporting a political figure who I, you know, agree with. And for days, it wouldn't stop, Phil. It wouldn't stop. And that kind of just put me off, like, Twitter in general. And since then, I've just been very basic vanilla on Twitter.
I guess you get it everywhere,
yeah.
though, don't you? Because Facebook is just as bad, if not worse, sometimes. But you're the best person to talk to about this, because the subject of this film, obviously, it's, you know, it's about a writer. She's a newspaper columnist, and she's, you know, obviously suffering this abuse, and she just has enough. She just lets off steam in a really bad way. But, you know, I mean, obviously you write for EQ Music blog. You've written for EQ Music for a long time. You founded it. Did a lot of, you know, did you think a lot when watching this about how you work?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little different things that I thought about while watching this film. As, you know, a blogger or a journalist, I remember the first time I ever got a press pass was for Robin's gig at Cargo way back in the day. And, you know, and I wrote a very honest and cool review for it, very lengthy. And, you know, all the other bloggers would just write this hateful shit towards me on my page, on their blogs, because it was a very competitive landscape back then, you know, and when blogging was, you know, a big, massive thing before social media. And, you know, I would just read some of the most hateful shit about myself online, and I would catch people doing it because I would get their IP addresses from my blogging platform, and I'd match them up with the IP addresses that they had online. Yeah. And I would literally catch people out. I'm like, why are you saying this shit about me? And they would make up the most elaborate stories about, like, oh, it was a friend who was wanting to defend me, who was staying with my flat. I'm like, fuck off. Like, you know, and I just had enough. I had enough, you know, and I called it out. And, you know, from that point, I stopped reading the comments. I'm just like, I will put out what I want to put out. It's nothing negative. I write from a very positive point of view, most of the time. And I thought about murdering my haters too. Who doesn't?
Well, this woman, Femke, she's told by her boyfriend, who is a horror writer. He's Stephen Dude, who, you know, they have that awkward television appearance to begin with, but obviously they fall in love and they're in a relationship. But he keeps saying to her, because he keeps seeing her scrolling through all these comments, and just tells her to avoid the comments. You know, like you say, that you know, that it's good advice, isn't it, just to avoid reading those, because you just get sucked into this rabbit hole and it's all very negative.
Yeah.
But she just carries on. Because she's got this determination. She wants to find these people and ask them why they're being so hateful. But that's also the interesting thing, is that when she does see these people, they're often quite lonely and quite sad and quite desperate people. And you do hear about these people that are just kind of keyboard warriors that sit behind their computers. They feel quite powerful because they're lashing out at other people that they don't, you know, agree with or get on with.
Yeah, I have to ask you, Phil, as a horror connoisseur, I mean, this is your genre.
Yeah.
I thought the murder scenes were quite clever, actually. Like, I thought like, they weren't just like, you know, oh, kill, slash, you know. Yeah. There was really clever dialogue, and the exchange between online commenter and lefty, you know, lefty liberalist was quite clever. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was all very intelligent. I think the writing was very intelligent, but it was well executed. You know, the direction of it was very modern. It felt almost like a lighter Black Mirror, because there is a lot of comedy in this. We shouldn't ignore that, because it's not really a strict horror film. It's got obviously horror undertones, but I think a lot of it is comedy. And I think it's a very dark comedy. It reminded me very much of a film called Revenge. I'm not sure if you've seen that, about the pregnant woman who obviously hears her baby talking to her. And it reminded me of that. I don't think it was as dark as that. I think it's quite dark in places. I think it has to be, but I think it's quite bright. It feels quite bright. Obviously, the subject matter is quite dark, but I think the way that it's put on screen, I think it's quite bright, and that makes it more entertaining in some ways. I think it's going to be a horror film that would appeal maybe to people that aren't necessarily into horror.
I couldn't help but not think about, does social media need to be regulated? Because I think that was an underlying side note about the film too. In a lot of ways, I feel that sometimes social media should be regulated. You shouldn't be able to say some of those nasty, hateful, violent things that were being said in the film, like the "see first" line by the flagpole. That is, if anyone's posting that shit, there's some psychoticness going on in there, and it should be looked at, but then it's like freedom of speech versus, hate that can manifest itself into violence. And, I don't think the world has taken on the subject quite well enough yet. And so I definitely, for me, that was a big theme about the movie, whether it was blatant or not. It makes you think a lot about, should social media be regulated? Yeah,
and I think that's why it was so clever in so many ways, because it did feel very current. And I suppose we've seen the changes with the news, publishing news in Australia. Obviously Facebook have banned that now. So I guess we're seeing the start of maybe, regulation, maybe changes on Facebook, on social media that, we could be in a different place maybe in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, you can literally, you can't post images about murder or rape or blood and guts or anything on social media, but you shouldn't be able to write those things either, and words matter. I think words matter a lot more than visual medium these days, because we're so desensitized to everything we see as a visual medium. And, words do matter. And I think the writer and director of this film really nailed it on the head. I love the ending. I thought it was the perfect ending to the film. It's exactly what I wanted to see. It was clever. Yeah. It gave me nods to Dexter. I just loved it. And I really hope this film gets a major pickup, like a Netflix or something like that, because it deserves it.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought the end was very theatrical in a way. It was almost like a dance scene being played out on stage, like a ballet or something. I thought it was really, really powerful. And in a way, I suppose the third act, I could kind of predict what was going to happen in some ways. The final scene I thought was very well executed. Again, I thought it was very clever. In some ways, I thought the third act did seem a bit like I knew where it was going, but it's just a minor quibble, because I thought the film was great. Let's talk about the acting as well, because I thought Katja Herbers was terrific in the lead role, and also her daughter, who was Claire Porro. I thought she was great as Anna, the daughter, because some really funny scenes with her headmaster at school. Obviously, she was putting on these demonstrations. She was very politically minded too, like a mum in some ways.
Mother and daughter.
Campaigning for free speech. Her headmaster didn't want her to be so outspoken, but again, there was that interesting storyline as well with her daughter and how similar she was in some ways.
Exactly. Yeah, all around it was clever. The only minor quibble I have is, some of the murder scenes. This bitch did it in broad daylight in front of everyone, and so it took me out of the suspense of disbelief, or whatever you call it. She had no shame. She'd walking in the street with a rifle and pushing people off roofs, and in broad daylight. I was like,
you know what? I loved that though. I love that because it was quite comic book in some ways. In some ways you couldn't believe it, because it was. Yeah. But again, I think that reflected the comedy, because I thought the comedy was very surreal in some ways. Yeah. It's so dark, and I love the fact that they made it quite hilarious, even though obviously it wasn't funny what she was doing, but the way that they made it look was funny, because it kind of slapstick in a way, and I like that because it made the dark tones brighter.
You know, they could have played that whole thing like, oh, it was a dream sequence, or, you know, it was her fantasies. But no, they didn't. They just went balls to the wall with it. I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this film.
Yeah, it's out on the 12th of March, by the way. I think they're hoping for cinema releases, but obviously because of the pandemic, it's going to be digital. It's going to get a digital release on the 12th of March. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 because I thought it was, really compelling and funny as well.
Same, 8 out of 10 for me. Whoa, we agree on scoring, Phil. It's been a while.
What's happening?
I know.
Is it lockdown that's making us behave this way? It's good to see you, Raj. We got lots coming up. We got the South by Southwest Festival in the States, which is online this year. Also, the BFI Flair LGBTQ plus festival in London, which again is online.
And 2 of the films that they've announced so far as the headliners look great. So I'm so excited this year.
So many great movies. I'm looking forward to seeing the polystyrene documentary about the lead singer of X-Ray Specs from the Pumpkins.
Yes, I knew you would be really wanting to see that one. So I was like, oh, Phil's going to watch that one.
Yeah, some really good titles this year. So so make sure you subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this. Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Let us know if you're going to see The Columnist, if you've seen it already, because I know obviously it was a big hit in a lot of the festivals over the last year or so. And we'll see you on the next video. See you soon.